Hello, thank you for checking this video. Today we are going to see how nautical publications can be created using Keris HPD Publications module. Publications module is a product that allows users to create nautical publications such as lists of lights and notices to mariners. I'm going to show you a sample notice to mariners product created using Publications module. So here I have an example of a complete Notices to Mariners publication product created in Publications module. Publications module separates data from presentation. The content of a Notices to Mariners is stored in the database. However, the display of the information varies depending on the template applied. As such, if you desire to change how information is presented, you can do so by modifying the styling template. Publications module has default templates included with the product. And what you see here is an example of a default template that is being applied to data from Publications module. Another advantage of Publications module is that it allows content from HPD products as well as vector files opened in HPD editors to be imported into Publications module. In this video, we will see how data from the database can be imported into a publication. Alright, let's begin by creating our first Notices to Mariners product. We will be heading to Publications module. This is the interface of Publications module. To the left, you see the object browser window. And to the right, you see two tabs called Properties and Preview. You also have publication-related icons, which you can see over here, and menu bar items at the top of the application. You have the typical menu bar items such as File, Edit, and Publication menu specific items such as Certify, Publication, and Catalog. We will be seeing some of these items in action during this video. Let us actually start creating a publication. To do that, we will navigate to File, New, and we will choose Publication. An Oracle dialog box appears. Publication data is stored in an Oracle database. Like HPD, user roles govern what the users can or cannot do in the database. For this demonstration, I'll be using a user that has all user roles assigned. After typing the user, I will click Connect, and this will connect into the database. Publications module uses projects to keep track of work history. In an event mistakes were made during editing of a record, the record can be reverted to a previous record version. Since we will be creating a Notice to Mariners publication, I will select the NtM booklet publication project. We can create two types of publications, a list type publication or a notice type publication. A list type publication typically outputs information in a list format. Examples of a list type publication will be a list of lights or a list of buoys. This will be covered in a separate video. Today we are going to create a notice type publication. A notice publication consists of a notice, and each notice may have one or more instructions. I will talk more about notice and instructions as we proceed further into the video. So let's click OK. You will notice that in the object browser, we can see a pending notices layer as well as our newly created publication object. The pending notice layer is a persistent layer that exists across publications. Its function is to allow publication compilers to compile notices along with instructions as information filters in from various organizational units. Information pertaining to notice is typically obtained in an asynchronous and unstructured manner, and these information need to be collated and verified before it is ready to be released to the appropriate weekly publication. Pending notices layer fulfill this function. We will now see how we can create the structure of our publication. The steps that I will be showing here is typically done when you are creating the very first publication. You will not have to recreate the structure for every new weekly publication. The very first publication you create will be a template for your future publications. To create the structure of the publication, I'll be creating the structure directly into the publication object. I'll select the root layer of the notice publication object, which currently has a title, New Publication. I'll give a more descriptive title, so I will give in the title of NtM video demo, and I'll give in today's date of 2nd February 2016. You notice that as soon as I press enter, the title in the object browser updates. Underneath the main publication layer, I'll create two further subheadings to divide this booklet into appropriate subheadings. To create the first subheading, I'm just going to select the root layer, right-click, and click Add. In the Add Object dialog box, I'll select Notice Group, and I'll click OK. You'll notice that there are a couple of other objects that I can create, and we will be looking into further along the video. We will create a different section. So what this shows is that you can create other object types, and these object types are all customizable. You notice when I create a new notice group, a new layer is created underneath the publication. The name field is highlighted in red. We shall give a more descriptive name, and we shall call this Nautical Charts Notices. We will also update the section number so that it reflects the section number for this section. We can also provide a national language so that depending on the template that you use, the appropriate fields can be outputted. For now, we will give the following name. We now have the first subheading of the booklet. However, we need another subheading so that notices can be assigned to the correct geographical subregion. To do that, we're going to select the newly created layer, and we will repeat the previous steps to create a new subheading. So I'll select this subheading, right-click, click Add. I'll select a notice group, click OK, and I'll give the name East Coast. I will need to populate the national language field, so I'll just populate the field, and that for now we have a simple publication booklet with two subheadings. We are now ready to create the actual notice. We will mimic a real-world workflow by creating notices in the pending notices layer and then assign the created notice to the appropriate weekly publication. Our chart notices will be inserted under a chart notice section subheading. we will first create this section, and the process to create this section is similar to what we just completed earlier. So I'll click on the East Coast layer, right click, click Add, and you'll notice that I will now choose a different object, and I'll choose the standard chart notice section object. Each of this object over here has its own unique set of attributes, and as I mentioned earlier, each of these objects are customizable by the user. So I'll click OK, and for the name, I will give it a name, temporary and preliminary notices in false. I will also give the national language value So for now, we will stop the creation of various subheadings. We can create other subheadings if we desire, but for now, we will go and create the actual notices that we need for this booklet. But before we do that, let's save the work that we've done so far. As mentioned earlier, we'll be creating our temporary notices under the pending notices layer, and this is a persistent layer, meaning the objects that you create here will exist throughout the projects that you use in publications module. This is meant to be a temporary layer where the compiler can collate information, and once the information is completed, then the compiler can assign the notice to the relevant weekly publication booklet. Let's create a new temporary or preliminary notice. So under the pending notices layer, I'll go to standard T or P notice layer, and I will right click and click Add so that I can create a new notice. In the properties grid, you'll notice that the properties for the layer is being displayed. Depending on the object that you create, you will have different attributes, and each of these attributes here is customizable. So if a particular attribute is not needed, you can remove it using the built-in catalog editor. Okay, which is over here, open catalog. Now we will not be covering the modification of the objects or attributes in this video. That will be covered in a separate video. For this notice, we will be populating only a subset of these attributes. We will be populating the region, the sub-region, vicinity, the expiration date, and the term. So for region, we'll be typing the value of Canada. For sub-region, we'll give in the value of Nova Scotia, and for vicinity, we will give in the value of Dartmouth. For the expiration date, we shall give it a few days from now, so February 5, and the term we shall give it a temporary term. For the description field, we'll select the ellipsis button, and you notice that in this particular field we have what we call a HTML editor. I will talk more about this particular editor when I'm creating an instruction, but for now, let's populate the fields with the following text: boys for collecting meteorological data. So let's click OK. Okay, so let's save the work that we've done so far. Right now we have the first notice, and what the notice currently lacks is an instruction. There are two ways of creating an instruction. We can create an instruction manually, or we can create an instruction automatically. In this video, we will be looking at those two different methods. For now, we are going to create an instruction manually. So to do that, let's click on the notice that we just created momentarily ago. Right click and click Add. You'll notice that for this particular notice, there are two types of instructions that we can create. We can either create a regular chart notice instruction or a standard table instruction. We are going to create a regular chart notice instruction. Again, the types of instructions here are customizable. You can add as many or as few instructions as you want, and these instructions are modifiable using the catalog editor. So I'll select the standard chart notice instruction and I'll click OK. And a new instruction is created underneath the notice. Notice that in the properties grid, we have a different set of attributes associated with this instruction. For action, if we look down at the drop-down menu, we have a couple of predefined values. You can add additional values if you desire, or you can remove existing values to better suit what you need in your organization. And again, all these objects and attributes along with their values are modifiable through the built-in catalog editor, which will be covered in a separate video. For now, we will select Insert, and in the standard chart list, if we expand the tree, you can see there are a couple of attribute fields that one can populate to provide additional chart information. In this case, we will only provide the panel number as well as the chart datum. So for panel number, we will give the value of 999, and for the chart datum, we will give in the value of WGS 84. We will now populate the description for the instruction. So we are going to expand this complex attribute over here. So we've expanded the complex attribute. A complex attribute is an attribute that contains other attributes within it. So in this case, we are going to modify the English description. You're going to click the ellipsis button. So we are going to add a custom symbol, and to do that, I'm going to add a symbol using the insert symbol command. I'll add a beacon with a light object associated with it. There are a couple of other symbols as well that you can add. Caris will provide 3 TrueType font libraries, which are known as Caris Nautical 1, Caris Nautical 2, and Caris Nautical 3. So these are the symbols libraries that will be provided by default with the publications module installation, so that you can add TrueType fonts into your notice to minus publications. We will head back to Caris Nautical 1, and we will choose a beacon with a light, and we'll click OK. You'll notice that the symbol is slightly smaller, So to change the size, I'll go to the font and color button over here and select a different size, and you notice that the size changes. So I'll just, okay, so now that we have a symbol, we need to add some description along with the text. And to do that, I'll just change the font to Times New Roman and given the value, and type in the value of light red. Now you notice that there's it's the text here, it's bigger, and what we're going to do, we're going to resize the text by using the font and color, and we'll give it a more appropriate size, and I'll give this a size of 18. Now I can also italicize some of the characters if I so desire. So in this case, I'll italicize the flashing, and I'll just select, highlight using my keyboard the FL text, and just click the italics command to italicize the text. So that, what I just demonstrated, would be how you would add custom symbols and text using the built-in text editor command. So let's click OK, and you notice that it's reflected in the English description field over here. What we need to do next is to add positional values, and for the latitude field, I will type in the value of 28 followed by the degree symbol, okay, so 28 followed 19 minutes 26. Anyway, sorry. So we'll just type in 28 degrees 19 minutes, 28 degrees 19.26 minutes for the latitude. And for the longitude, okay, so we have a latitude information. Sorry, that's a wrong, we'll just give you, and for the longitude we'll just give a different value as well. So 151 degrees 3.25 minutes west. So once you've typed in the positional information, let's click save. Thus far, what we've done was to create an instruction manually. However, there is an easier way of creating instruction, and that is to populate notice instruction from data from the database. So that's what we're going to look at next. We're going to populate an instruction using data from the database. So to do that, let's create a new notice, and I'll give the same region. We'll just populate the same set of information. Canada, for sub-region, we'll give it now New Brunswick, and for vicinity, we'll just call it St. John. Okay, so we'll just populate those three information. In terms of others, we desire to populate them as well. We will populate the term. We just call it a temporary notice. Now, to populate the instruction automatically, we need an existing product open. So in this case, I will navigate to paper chart editor, and I already have an existing chart open. And in this case, I will navigate to a sounding. So I will select a sounding, And you notice in the selection grid, I have a sounding object selected, and in the attribute window that you see here, I have certain information present. I would like to draw your attention to the depth value, which is the Z column over here, which is the value 8.5 meters. So I'll just zoom in so you can see clearer. So what I'm going to do now, once I have this object selected in Paper Chart Editor, I will navigate back to Publications module, and I will use a command called generate instructions. Okay, what this does is that it will extract data from HPD, from the product, and populate the values into Publications module. So click Publication Generate Instructions. The feature count reflects the amount of features in the selection grid. Presently, I only have one feature selected, so I only have a feature count of 1. If I have multiple features selected, then that count will be reflected here. I have what we call a transformation file, and this transformation file contains rules that will extract data from HPD and place them in Publication module. This carriers will provide sample set of transformation file. So in this case, we will use one of the sample transformation file, and I'll click OK, and as soon as I click OK, the instruction will be created under the notice, and it will extract the data, the relevant values as stated inside this transformation file. So for now, I'll click OK, and you'll see that I get a dialog that says that operation was completed successfully. So I'll close it, and if I extend this notice information over here, you'll see that a new instruction was created. And if I expand the standard chart list, the chart title was populated automatically, as well as the chart number. Now the reason why the rest of the information were not populated was because I did not specify in the transformation file to populate such information, or those information were not populated in the product. So in the product, if I go to the chart title over here, you notice that quite a number of information here were not populated, and as such, because they were not populated in the product, they were not brought over into Publication module over here. Okay, so what we do see, however, is that we can see that the description was populated. So the depth value was bolded based on the rules specified in the transformation file, and the position was also populated as well. So we have the latitude and longitude information populated. Okay, so that shows what we demonstrated in this case over here. 2 different ways of populating instructions. You can either type in the instruction manually, or you can use the built-in tools to extract data from the database. So we have 2 different ways to populate data in Publication module. Now that we have the instructions populated and our notices are complete, we can transfer these notices to the relevant weekly publication. So for now, let's just select these 2 notices under the standard TOP notice, and we will do a right click, and we'll click the Add to Section command here. When we do that, you'll notice that the matching section will show up. In this case, these are temporary notices, chart notices, and we want to transfer these chart notices from the pending notices layer to the equivalent chart notices section in the opened weekly publication. So in this case, we only have one standard chart notice section available, so we will be transferring these notices into that section of the booklet. So we will click OK, and you'll notice that the notices have disappeared from the pending notices, and in turn it is now in its new location. It's inside the temporary and preliminary notices and force chart notice section of the NtM Video Demo 2 February 2016 booklet. Now, if I were to select the notice over here, you'll notice that the notice information was transferred successfully along with the instruction. Yeah, and so both notices and instructions were transferred successfully. However, you notice that we are still not finished. We do not have notice ID, any identifying information for this notice. You notice that the notice ID is not completed. Now we can type these notice IDs individually. However, if you have hundreds of notices, you would want a more efficient way of populating the notice IDs. And we do have such a way, and I'm going to demonstrate how we can populate these notices, the notice IDs, the identifying information, the notice IDs automatically. So what we do, we will first select the chart notice section, which is over here, and we're going to generate the identifying numbers, the IDs for all the notice IDs under this section. So to do that, we will go to Publication and we will click Generate IDs. We want to automatically generate values to the notice ID attribute. Okay, so we are going to click on the notice ID attribute over here. Now you can generate automatic values for other attributes as well, but in this case we are only interested in generating automatic values for the notice ID. So we'll click OK, and for the prefix we will give the name of NtM. For the start value we will start with a value of 10, and we will increment the value by 1. We will give the length of the digits that will be printed to be 3. So what this means is if your notice ID has a value of 5, then it will pad that value with beginning values. So in this case, if I had an ID of 5, it will pad zeros until the total length of digits will amount to the ID length, right? So in this case we want the 3-digit length. So if it starts off with 10, that means the first 10 will be padded with a beginning value of 0, so that you will have 0, 1, 0, which will give you the length of 3. Now for the suffix, we will give the following value of /2016. So this will be appended to the end of your ID value, ID number. Okay, so we'll click OK, and as soon as we click OK, the IDs will be populated for all the notices. So let's click OK, and you'll notice that for this notice I have NtM, which is the prefix, followed by 010. Remember, 3 digits. The beginning 0, that's because of the condition that the ID length has to be 3 characters, 3 digits, and the suffix is the / followed by the 2016. And if I go to the next notice over here, the 10 has incremented to 11, but the suffix and the prefix remains the same. Okay. Now a user can also cancel previously published notices. To do this, we will first select a notice, and we will right click and select Cancel Notices. If you have previously created a filter, the filter will be saved and will appear under the drop down menu. You can also create custom rules to filter existing notices in publication module for cancellation, or you can cancel notices that were published out of publications module through the usage of external notices. Okay. Since we do have existing notices in our database, we will be using the filter wizard. Okay. So we'll click on the ellipsis button over here, and what you see here is a rule wizard with a set of existing rules that were created beforehand. For this exercise, we will create a new rule so that you can see the options that are available to you when you want to cancel an existing notice. So I'll click create new rule and I'll click next. I want to cancel a standard, temporary or preliminary notice. So I will click on the standard T or P notice checkbox over here. There are other type of notices that you can cancel. Catalog notice, chart notice, for example, and you have these type of notices. So in this case, I'll just want to cancel the standard T or P notice, and I'll click next. There are a couple of conditions that you can choose to modify to further restrict your rule. In this case, I will select the first one, and there are links available that you can select. The blue colored links means that you can select the link and modify the value. So in this case, I will select the first link, and in the drop down menu I'll choose publish number and I'll click OK. And now that I've selected which attribute I want to use, the two other links are now available for me to modify. I will change the second link to greater than, and for the value I will type the value of 100. So what this does is that this rule will check for any notice IDs that are larger than the value of 100. Okay. So we'll click next. I can specify a name for this rule. And I'll click finish to save the rule, and you'll notice that as soon as I click finish, whatever notices that match the condition that was specified will be listed over here. To help you with the selection of the notice, you can also scroll and see the notice information that is presented over here. Once you've determined that the notice is the correct notice has been identified, you can select the notice. In my case, I'll select the first notice as an example, or any notice that you prefer. I'll select the second notice in this case, and I'll just click OK. And you'll notice as soon as I've done that, a new sublayer called cancel notices is created, and under that cancel notices I have the actual notice that I cancelled, and this notice has those instructions. Now that I've cancelled the note, showed you how to cancel notice, I will now save the work that I've done so far, and we will also take this opportunity to review how our publication looks in the preview window. So to review the style and content of the publication, we'll first select the root of the publication and we'll navigate to the preview tab. In this case, we do have a sample template that is provided along with the publication, and using the sample template we can see how our publication looks like. So we have a very simple publication with just one section, and it lists the notices fairly well. We provide Keras provides a sample template, which is this, the ntm.xsl, and this will be included as part of the installation for publications module. And by selecting the template, you can see that the styling is applied to the data in the publications module. So if you have a different template, then the styling will change depending on the rules that you specify in that new template. Okay, so if everything is okay in the preview window, then we can proceed to certify the data. If you've noticed certain mistakes, then you can use this opportunity to go back to the Properties tab and modify the mistakes. Before we can publish the weekly publication, we have to certify the records and the publication itself. Users are intended to certify each object individually. To certify an object, select an object, right-click, and click Submit. We will first certify the instructions. So we will certify these two instructions. Then we will certify the notices. And finally, the subheadings, as well as the root layer of the publication. So to certify the instruction, we will click on the instruction, right-click, Submit. We will repeat the same procedure by clicking the next instruction, right-clicking, and clicking Submit. Now we want to verify both instructions or multiple instructions at the same time. We first select the instructions, right-click, and verify. You'll notice that when you verify, the icon changes. So we will do the same thing for this notice over here. So click on this notice, right-click, Submit, right-click, and verify. We will do the same thing for each of the subheadings. And we'll just stop short of the root layer. So let's save the work that we've done so far. And at the root layer, we are going to specify a publish date. So we will set today's date as a publish date, and we will give an edition number. And before we finish, we will submit and also verify. You'll notice that there's also a comments tab. So a user can also comment on the item. Let's say if a person identifies something wrong with the notice or instruction, a user can type in a comment. So in this case, I'm going to just add a simple comment saying that this publication can be published. If I click Submit, you notice that the icon changes here again. With you can see a small balloon at the top of the root layer, and you can see the user as well as the date stamp. Another user can see this comment and may desire to acknowledge the comment. So user can acknowledge the comment by clicking on the checkbox over here. And as soon as the user acknowledges it, the balloon disappears. So let's see the work that we've done so far. And now we are going to export the data so that we can do post-processing on the exported output. So at this stage, we are now ready to publish the notice to minus publication. And to export what we have, we will select the root layer, right-click, and click Export to XML. The Export Publication dialog appears. We will browse to a location to store our output file. So in this case, we'll just give a name, NtM February 2, 2016. We'll click Save. The style sheet is the template that will apply styling instructions to the data that is exported from publications module. So in this case, we are going to specify we are going to use the standard template provided with publications module called NtM, and we will select that and we will click OK. It's just asking us to whether we want to overwrite the existing file. So we will say yes, and we will get a message saying that the operation was completed successfully. Now that we have successfully exported data, we are now ready to view the exported XML. So to do that, I'm just going to the File Explorer window and just go to the location of the folder I exported the data. Alright, so I have the location, I'm now in the directory where I exported the file. I'll select the XML file and I will open in Microsoft Word. To display the style sheet along with the XML, we use Microsoft Word 2010 and above, as well as any modern browsers that can support XSL. So now that we have Microsoft Word open, we will select the template in the XML data views. It will just give us a message. We'll just click OK. And you will notice that the style sheet was successfully applied. But what we need to do now is to make sure that we go to the page layout, go to the view window and change the layout to a print layout. So from this stage you can see how the template is applied to the data from publications module. The styling that is applied is based on the instructions that you specify in your styling template. So if you specify a different styling template, the data will be outputted differently. So you can, if you require further post-processing, you can do it within Microsoft Word, or you can export the content from Microsoft Word into a PDF and then later use a desktop publishing software such as Adobe or any other third-party desktop publishing software to do further post-processing. Alright, so this concludes the demonstrations for publications module. So this video we looked at how we can generate notice to mariners using data from publications module, and the content of a notice to mariners publication is stored in the publications module. We've learned how to generate instructions either manually or through automatically. So the first instructions we generated we populated it by typing using the built-in editing functionalities, whereas the second instruction we did it by capturing data from paper chart. So if you have any questions, please do not hesitate to contact us either through this YouTube video or through the Caris online customer support webpage. Thank you.